This is a difficult and extraordinary time.
Right now, my only job is to make sure that Canadians can keep food in the fridge.
But in difficult times like these, we learn a lot about who we are as a people.
Think of ways you can help to ensure that we get through this together.
We don't just need to flatten the curve, we need to plank it.
We'll provide $27 billion of direct support.
The federal government revealed plans yesterday to shut down the U.S.-Canada border.
There are lonely people. There are frightened people.
And we're just going to be here for each other.
It's Sunday, March 22nd. I'm Mike Le Couteur, and this is the West Block. Social distancing, travel restrictions, and closures. The new norm in the fight against COVID-19.
We know this is a difficult and extraordinary time in which Canadians are taking difficult and extraordinary measures, and we will continue to do that until Canadians are safe.
And joining me right now is the Minister of Foreign Affairs, François-Philippe Champagne. Mr. Champagne, thanks so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me this morning.
And thanks for being here because you were feeling under the weather and you had to undergo a COVID-19 test. Tell me, how scary was that for you?
Well, you know, I was the week before. I think it's 2 weeks now. Time goes so quickly. I went to visit our troops in Europe and was in a number of countries. So when I came back, with a mix of jet lag and a mix of being under the weather, I thought I followed, health advice. The health advice said, under those circumstances, you should take no chance, and I took no chance. I got the test and got the negative result, and that allowed me, the good thing out of that is that since I could not move, I could even work more. So that was good because I was confined in one room in my house and just were managing all the operation.
But you must have been nervous, though.
I was nervous, but I mean, in a sense, I knew that at the end of the day, I had a job to do. We're facing unprecedented circumstances, and in this case, like many of our folks who are on the front line, you don't think too much about yourself. It's about serving. It's about making sure we have tens of thousands of Canadians who depend on me and my team to fly them back home. So I must say, Mike, I didn't spend much time thinking about me. My days and my nights are about thinking, how can I bring back these people who are stranded for no fault of their own? We've seen countries imposing airspace closure, airports closure, martial law in some country, travel restrictions. So my job and our job is really to make sure that we find safe passage for these people to be able to come back home, because home is the safest place now.
So about that, we had a flight come home last night from Morocco, hundreds of Canadians on that, so they're back home. You're also looking at Spain and Peru. How soon can Canadians in those countries expect to board a plane to finally get back to Canada?
Well, I hope we'll have other news to announce on that, updates, because getting the plane is usually the easiest piece.
Right.
That's step one. After that, I need to negotiate country by country. So that's why information is key in times of crisis and in times where people are nervous, and it's understandable. So what I do once we have a lock on an aircraft, then it's really making sure that I'll be able to get that plane to land. So getting the landing permission, getting safe passage for the crew, making sure that we have a proper boarding procedure, because as you know, people are going to come back. Only asymptomatic passengers will be allowed to board, and those which are coming back will have to self-isolate for 14 days. So it's probably one of the most complex operations you can imagine. I was talking to CEOs of airlines this week, and I want to thank them, whether it's WestJet, Sunwing, Air Canada, Air Transat. Air Transat, I think, brought back like 30,000 people.
Wow.
So there's a lot of things happening. But obviously what you hear sometimes is those are the most difficult cases. We have people in Guatemala, we have people in Ecuador, and that's where I need to intervene almost on an hourly basis, because countries change the rules, situation on the grounds are moving. We need to make sure people can get to these airports. So that's what we're doing on a 24/7 basis.
So what do you say to Canadians? Because the Prime Minister admitted yesterday there will inevitably be some Canadians that you can't get home. What do you say to those Canadians that will now feel abandoned by this government?
Well, we'll help you where you are. If you look at the scale of what we're trying to achieve, Canada and any other country, this has never been seen in the history of the world, where you have all these issues at the same time: airspace closure, airports closure, martial law in some countries. So What we have to accept is that there will be some Canadians who can come back home, and what we'll do with our missions around the world is to provide them services, to assist them the best we can. We've done that, as you know, when we had the Diamond Princess, we had folks in hospital in Japan. We had a similar situation with the Grand Princess in Oakland. So we know how to help people there. But I'll be honest with you, this is going to be in a scale that we've never seen before. To give you a sense of perspective, we've got like 14,000 emails in the last 48 hours, 10,000 calls. We have 600 people in our operations center 24/7. So this is in a scale that we've never seen. So everyone is mobilized. We're focusing on helping those in need most. And my other job is to maintain these aerial bridges between Canada and, for example, Europe and Latin America and Asia, to make sure that Canadians who could be stranded in a country can make their way, for example, to London. And I negotiated with the British government that whatever happens, we will always keep flights between London and Canada, making sure that people for emergency situation, essential travel, can come back home.
But you don't have that everywhere. So for instance, on people on cruise ships, there's an estimated 4,000 Canadians still stranded on cruise ships, about 70 cruise ships around the world. What are you saying to people who are out at sea now? They're not even near an airport.
Well, we're working with the cruise line. I've been in touch with the CEO of Holland America, for example, constantly. We have a bit of experience, sadly, with that now, because we had a number of them. As you know, there was a group, we came back from Marseille just yesterday where there was an issue. The cruise ship is particularly complex because there you have people in a number of cases which have contracted COVID-19. So that brings a whole different set of circumstances in terms of protecting their own health, but also the health of others. What we're talking when we're saying Canadians coming back home, those are tourists that are simply stranded. You know, this has got two types of situation. One is really a health issue. The other one is facilitating the return of our Canadians who are stranded in a place for some time, no fault of their own, and most of the time they just happen to be at the wrong place at the wrong time because countries now have imposed very strict restrictions. So my job is to fly them back home, and that's what we're doing these days.
I want to look a little bit ahead because on Tuesday, Parliament will return. Roughly 30 parliamentarians, MPs will be coming to pass that $82 billion stimulus package. Doesn't expect to be held up at all. The finance minister has said that his number one priority is to put money in people's pockets so that they have food in their fridge. Why hasn't this government said, you know what, we're just going to cut checks to every Canadian now instead of trying to wait for these programs that could take some time for that money to get out the door?
Well, you need to find a way to get that money to people. I think that's exactly what the finance minister is saying, is that we have these programs. We'll make sure that everyone, whether it's workers, whether it's families, that everyone, we want to take care of our people. But the way to do that, obviously, you need to work with a system to provide these funds. So that's why these programs are in place. They'll be bona fide to make sure that we're facing something that we've never seen before. But we need to find the way, the mechanism, which is fair, quick, and appropriate, you know, because we need to have speed and resiliency in that. So we need to balance these things to make sure that what we do is fair, but also it's fast and it's resilient. That's exactly what I think the minister is looking at, is the vehicle to deliver that money to those people as quickly as we can.
We've only got 30 seconds, so very quickly, the Emergencies Act. A lot of people walking around right now and saying maybe people aren't social distancing enough. At what point do we have to be like California and say, or other countries and say, that's it? Police will be on the streets. If you are walking in the street, you will be arrested. When does Canada get to that?
We're looking at all our options, and I must say that's why we need everyone. You know, in order to protect your own health, you need to abide by what the public officials and health officials are telling.
Unfortunately, that's all the time we have. Minister, thanks so much for joining us. I appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.
Up next, $82 billion and counting. The economic toll of the new coronavirus.